Last month, I found myself aboard a $200 million super yacht off the coast of a stunning island with pristine beaches and clear waters. The tech mogul hosting us mentioned he'd been trying to buy that island for over 8 years, offering staggering sums, but had always been declined. It struck me that even billionaires can't buy certain exclusive places. Today, we're exploring the most inaccessible islands on Earth, where wealth means nothing, and the stories behind these inaccessible paradises are truly captivating. Let's begin with perhaps the most famous unbuyable island in the world, North Sentinel Island in the Andaman Sea. This 23-square-mile piece of paradise isn't protected by price tags or waiting lists, but by something far more formidable: the Indian government and its indigenous inhabitants, who have violently rejected all outside contact for centuries. The Sentinelese people, believed to number fewer than 100 individuals, have maintained their isolation so fiercely that approaching within 3 miles of their shores is illegal under Indian law. We're talking about an island that has remained completely untouched by modern civilization, where the inhabitants still live as hunter-gatherers and actively attack anyone who attempts to land on their beaches. Several ultra-wealthy individuals have inquired about the possibility of purchasing or even visiting North Sentinel Island, offering the Indian government sums exceeding $500 million for limited access. The response has been consistently and emphatically negative. In 2018, when American missionary John Allen Chau illegally attempted to visit the island, he was killed by the inhabitants within hours of landing. The Indian government didn't even attempt to recover his body, respecting the Sentinelese people's sovereignty over their territory. This incident sent shockwaves through the luxury travel community, where certain billionaires had been quietly exploring the possibility of anthropological expeditions to the world's last uncontacted tribe. Britain's Crown Estate owns some of the most spectacular islands in the world, and here's the fascinating part: they're constitutionally prohibited from selling them. Take the Isles of Scilly, a breathtaking archipelago off the coast of Cornwall, consisting of over 140 islands and rocky outcrops, with only 5 inhabited. Prince Charles, in his role as Duke of Cornwall, technically owns these islands, but they can never be sold due to ancient laws dating back to 1337. The islands generate income through extremely limited leasing arrangements, with waiting lists for properties that can stretch for decades. Roman Abramovich, before facing sanctions, reportedly offered the Crown Estate over $2 billion for a 999-year lease on just one of the uninhabited Scilly Islands, hoping to create a private retreat that would rival anything in the Mediterranean. The offer was declined without consideration, not because of the amount, but because Crown Estate policy strictly prohibits any arrangements that would effectively transfer ownership of these islands. Similarly, several Middle Eastern royal families have made inquiries about purchasing various Scottish islands owned by the Crown, only to discover that constitutional law makes such transactions impossible, regardless of financial offer. The Galapagos Islands represent perhaps the ultimate example of conservation trumping commerce. While Ecuador technically owns these volcanic islands, they're protected by such stringent international laws that purchasing them would be impossible for any private individual, regardless of wealth. These 19 major islands, famous for inspiring Darwin's theory of evolution, are UNESCO World Heritage Sites with protection levels that make Fort Knox look accessible. The Ecuadorian government has repeatedly rejected offers from private buyers, including one rumored $50 billion proposal from a consortium of tech billionaires who wanted to create a sustainable research paradise. The most serious attempt to acquire access to the Galapagos came from Elon Musk in 2019, who reportedly approached the Ecuadorian government with a proposal to establish a SpaceX research facility on one of the uninhabited islands. His offer included $10 billion in direct payments to Ecuador, plus commitments to fund conservation efforts throughout the archipelago for 50 years. The proposal was seriously considered at the highest levels of government before being ultimately rejected due to international pressure from environmental groups and UNESCO, who argued that any private development would fundamentally compromise the island's scientific value. Musk later described the rejection as probably the right decision, but definitely disappointing. Some of the world's most exclusive islands remain unbuyable not because of government protection, but because their current owners simply refuse to sell at any price. Take Necker Islands in the British Virgin Islands, owned by Sir Richard Branson since 1978 when he purchased it for just $180,000. Today, Necker Island is valued at over $100 million. But here's what makes it truly exclusive. Branson has repeatedly turned down offers exceeding $1 billion from fellow billionaires who want to purchase his Caribbean paradise. The island spans 74 acres and can accommodate up to 34 guests in its luxurious accommodations. Jeff Bezos reportedly made 3 separate offers for Necker Island between 2019 and 2021, culminating in a final bid of $1.8 billion, nearly 18 times the island's estimated value. Branson declined each offer, explaining that Necker isn't just property to him, it's his family's sanctuary and the birthplace of many Virgin Group ideas. The island has hosted everyone from Nelson Mandela to Barack Obama, and Branson considers it priceless in terms of personal and business value. This rejection reportedly frustrated Bezos so much that he began his own search for private islands, ultimately leading to his rumored interest in purchasing several properties in the Caribbean and Pacific, though none matched Necker's unique combination of location, facilities, and prestige. Climate change and environmental protection have created a new category of unbuyable islands, those protected by conservation trusts and environmental organizations that will never allow private ownership. The Aldabra Atoll in Seychelles is one such treasure. This UNESCO World Heritage Site is home to the world's largest population of giant tortoises and remains completely undeveloped except for a small research station. The Seychelles Islands Foundation maintains strict control over access, allowing only a handful of scientists and researchers to visit each year. Several prominent billionaires, including hedge fund manager Ray Dalio and luxury resort developer Adrian Zecha, have approached the Seychelles government with offers exceeding $3 billion to purchase Aldabra Atoll for private conservation purposes. Their proposals included commitments to maintain the island's ecological integrity while developing minimal, ultra-luxury ecotourism facilities. However, the Seychelles Islands Foundation and international environmental groups have successfully argued that any private ownership, regardless of conservation commitments, would compromise the atoll's scientific value and set a dangerous precedent for other protected sites worldwide. Some islands remain off-limits due to their profound cultural and spiritual significance to indigenous peoples. Surtsey, a volcanic island off the coast of Iceland that emerged from the ocean in 1963, is one such place. The UNESCO World Heritage Site is completely off-limits to everyone except a small number of scientists who study the island's unique ecosystem development. The Icelandic government has declared Surtsey a natural laboratory that must remain undisturbed to preserve its scientific value. Mark Benioff, CEO of Salesforce and known for his interest in environmental causes, reportedly offered the Icelandic government $500 million in 2020 to establish a climate research institute on Surtsey, arguing that his proposal would enhance rather than compromise the island's scientific mission. The proposal included state-of-the-art research facilities and commitments to fund climate studies for 100 years. Despite the offer's scientific merit and massive financial benefit to Iceland, the government declined, maintaining that Surtsey's value as an undisturbed natural laboratory outweighs any potential benefits from private development, regardless of how well-intentioned. What makes these unbuyable islands so fascinating isn't just their exclusivity, it's what they represent in a world where everything seems to have a price. They serve as the ultimate reminder that some things transcend monetary value, existing in realms of environmental protection, cultural preservation, and scientific importance that money simply cannot penetrate. For the ultra-wealthy, these islands represent the one thing their vast fortunes cannot provide: access to spaces that remain genuinely beyond reach. They're the geographical equivalent of being told no, a word that billionaires rarely hear in any other context. The psychological impact of these rejections on the ultra-wealthy is profound and often underestimated. When Oracle founder Larry Ellison successfully purchased 90% of the Hawaiian island of Lanai for $300 million in 2012, he did so partly out of frustration at being unable to acquire other, more exclusive islands. Ellison had previously been rejected in attempts to purchase islands in French Polynesia, the Maldives, and the Caribbean, leading him to focus on Lanai as an achievable alternative. His transformation of Lanai into a sustainable luxury destination became as much about proving his capability to create exclusivity as it was about owning a piece of paradise. As climate change threatens many low-lying islands and environmental awareness increases, we're likely to see even more islands becoming permanently unbuyable. Rising sea levels are creating urgency around protecting remaining pristine environments, while growing wealth inequality makes the preservation of these spaces more politically and socially important. Looking ahead, emerging technologies are creating new forms of island exclusivity. Several billionaires, including Peter Thiel and Larry Page, have invested in seasteading projects, artificial islands built in international waters beyond any government's jurisdiction. These floating cities represent the ultimate solution to the unbuyable island problem. If you can't buy paradise, build your own. Early seasteading projects are expected to cover over $50 million per residence, with the first prototypes launching in international waters off French Polynesia by 2026. However, even these artificial islands face regulatory challenges, as governments worldwide grapple with how to handle floating cities that exist outside traditional territorial boundaries. So what do you think? Does knowing that certain paradises remain forever beyond reach make them even more appealing? Have you ever encountered something that money truly couldn't buy, and how did that make you feel? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'm genuinely curious about your perspectives on these untouchable treasures.